3 statistical secrets that you need to know heading into the Spain Grand Prix. Welcome to the Pitwall, your stop for fantasy Formula 1 content. You can like and subscribe to stay up to date with new content like this. I'm J-Jack, and let's go. Our first statistical secret is the dynamic pricing, the huge swing of Ocon. Put things in perspective, he started the year costing 10.1 million. He only sits right now at 10.2 million. You might think, why is there such a big story behind an increase of 0.1 million? Well, here is the story, and to understand it, I'm going to share with you my spreadsheet. This spreadsheet on the infographics tab tracks the sentiment of drivers. Ocon is the dashed line, Alonso is the dotted line, and Alpine is the bold line. Starting off at the beginning of the season, it was not that good for any of these two drivers and constructor, and they were bouncing, going negative, down, down, down. You can see here from where it is highlighted down to plus 4T, which is Thursday, the 4th day after the previous race. He sat in the negative 90th percentile for over 4 days. There's a combination of things. The first is only 17% of the league had him at the time, which means that there wasn't nearly as many people to get rid of him or to gain him. And with the amount of people that weren't really letting go of him, he wasn't going to drop. And once he did drop, you could see over the next race, you could see preparing up for the next race that he was just slight, and then bada bing, bada boom, it shoots up because after third practice, everybody saw how on point the Alpine team was last race, and then he shot up 0.2 million between free practice 3 and the qualifying, and then as soon as the race was over, he shot up another 0.2 million, and this last week he has raised even more, to the point that not only did he make up the lost $500,000 that he had from the beginning of the season, he is now positive 0.1 million. And that is the crazy story of Ocon. Last race, he was 17% picked across the entire league. Now he's at 21%, a raise of 4%. He is the top traded in driver between last week and this week, and he's sitting at 25% trade in percentage. He even shot up to 4th highest in points per million. He now leapfrogged Leclerc and Hamilton. Ocon sits at a 1.4 points per million. That is an astronomical change in just one race. And so if you're thinking about Ocon, well, the rest of the league was also thinking about Ocon, and they're picking him up. I actually picked him up because I wanted to get an upswing in value, but I should have done it way sooner. But that is the amazing thing of a team that suddenly hits their stride for one race, which now brings us to the second statistical secret, the track. The Spanish Grand Prix is notorious for not allowing much passing. That means your team, the higher average qualifying position they have, the higher chance they have at keeping that position at the end of the race. Usually people gain a lot of points over the course of the race by passing others. Well, that is very difficult on this track. And here's the strength of Alpine. They had upgrades that were intended for the Spanish Grand Prix, but they brought them up a week early to the Portugal Grand Prix, and there was new surface on that track, which meant it had a lack of grip, and Alpine was able to take advantage of that. There are new corners in the Spanish Grand Prix that were resurfaced, which means there's also a lack of grip in some of these corners. The same Alpine that was able to capitalize on that lack of grip in the previous race is likely to capitalize with its new upgrades this race, and that is why not just Ocon but Alonso and Alpine have been seeming to be more valued. Another thing to keep in mind for this track is Sainz. Many people were on the Ferrari bandwagon from the previous 2 races, but Sainz, he only scored 2 points last race, and that was because of a tire strategy that Ferrari made. Good news is that Sainz has finished in the top 10 every time he's raced at his home Grand Prix, the Spanish Grand Prix. And if he qualifies high, expect Ferrari to actually give him a really good strategy that'll keep his tires fresh, that'll keep him going for the rest of the race, and he's going to keep those good haul of points. Don't forget, Sainz qualified 5th at the Portugal Grand Prix. That's the power of Ferrari. If he's able to qualify high in this GP, imagine how many points he's going to get. which now brings us to our third statistical secret, the drivers. Our top pick is still Norris. I've been saying Norris the entire season, and that's because he is just astronomical. His seasonal pick rate is 62%. That means almost 2/3 of the entire league have this driver on their team. He has the highest points per million at 2.2. He has the highest value at 5.8%. He has the second highest trade-in behind Ocon at 14%. Norris is by and far the best driver that you can turbo, because turbo drivers have to be underneath the 20 million cost, and he fits that bill. He is not only cheap, he's scoring a lot of points, and he is looking to continue that haul for the rest of the season. And with that Mercedes engine in the McLaren, their reliability is so much higher. So expect Norris to be able to continue his push, his domination of points for the rest of the season. Here's my value pick. Like last week, it is still the same this week. Mick Schumacher. He has the second highest points per million at 1.9. He's the fifth highest value at 1.9%. And what is his secret? He gains positions during the race. You might think, hey, driver, he qualifies really low. Yeah, he may not get that many points, but put this in perspective. For qualifying, you get 1 point through 10 points if you are 10 through 1. Anybody who qualifies 11 or below gets 0 points for qualifying. So that means Mick Schumacher is getting the same amount of points that half of the racers are getting for qualifying. But if he's not losing points because of losing positions during the race, that's where he is gaining more points than most of the other drivers during the race. And so Mick Schumacher continues to be a value pick for his price point, especially if you have a more expensive driver as your anchor. Now it's time for my picks, and I have a big decision to make. I have the same team for Team 1. As I've stated before, I'm really not trying to make many changes for Team 1 to see what happens if you just draft and hold on to that team as the season progresses. Team 2 is where I'm trying to make a lot of day trading, trying to get an upswing of value. That means that I changed out Gasly and subbed in Ocon so I could take advantage of the tail end of his swing. Like I said before, Ocon would have given you the best value if you had done him before the last race or right after the last race. But here's the big decision I have to make. Do I keep Sainz? See, he is sitting at a negative 95%. Do I keep Sainz? Do I keep Sainz and lose a value of 0.1 million? Or do I pick up Mick Schumacher? Here's the crazy thing. On the infographics tab of the Google Sheet, you will notice that under cost to points comparison, Sainz has 36 points. If you go over to Mick Schumacher, he has 33 points. That's a difference of 3 points. Sainz costs 14.4 million. Mick Schumacher costs 5.7. That is a huge difference, and you have to think, does Sainz not return the amount of points that he should be? But here's something also to keep in mind. I made a new tab in my Google spreadsheet called Price Point. This is where I can compare the two drivers. I have a Team 1, which comprises of Sainz, and the Team 2, which has Mick Schumacher. My cost cap is 102.1 million, and every cell that's highlighted shows you where one team is better than the other. Yes, Team 2 may have 3 more points over the course of the season and 1 point average over the course of the season. But if you look, it seems like that's a very marginal difference. But what may be the difference is what is the average qualifying position, and what is the average amount of positions gained, and the percentage of beating your teammate. Because I have Leclerc on the same team as Sainz, that is where there's that weakness. But here's the thing to keep in mind. Who has the higher ceiling? The average for Sainz is 12 points per race. The average for Mick Schumacher is 11 points per race. But if Sainz didn't have that weird race last week, he would have had a much higher average. And so my hope is to hold on to Sainz with the intention that his ceiling will be greater in the Ferrari than Mick Schumacher has in the Haas. But this is what I want to leave with you. Always keep in mind when you are wanting to trade out a driver, what is their price point? I actually made a video that will be in the link in the description talking about that very subject. How can you compare drivers to see if it's worth dropping the current driver you have and picking up another one? And that will help you with your team composition, but also the long haul, making sure you're making the right decisions for your team. And there you have it, our 3 statistical secrets for the Spain Grand Prix. I'm Jay Jack, and until next time, I'll see you on the pit wall.